Good afternoon to you, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion. Pretty short one today for Sunday, August 12th, 2012. The tropics just in a funk. Nobody's really complaining, except those who like to track hurricanes, of course. But coastal dwellers, I think, went out in their relief that nothing is threatening land and there's nothing out there to pose any threats over the next several days. Gulf of Mexico, nice and clear, as is most of the Caribbean. This is the remnants of TD7 moving on across through the gauntlet of the Caribbean Sea. Fairly hostile environment through here, usually no matter the hurricane season. And then this sprawling area of low pressure out here, Invest area 93L, at one time looked like it might try to come all the way across and maybe threaten the East Coast, but then the models abandoned that idea, and I think what will happen is that this will meander out over the Atlantic and finally develop up here in the subtropical Atlantic, where conditions, believe it or not, are more favorable. There's just too much dry air, and that is putting a lid on things, despite the fact that vertical shear is right where it should be for this time of year in the tropical Atlantic. It's not, it's just a tad below normal, which is actually favorable for development. But the bigger issue is this vertical instability that continues to run significantly below the climatological mean here. If this was up here, or even right at the climatological average, then we'd have a lot more to talk about, I can almost guarantee you, especially since we've had so many active tropical waves. In the eastern Pacific, what was once a tropical wave and then became Ernesto, moved inland and now has popped out into the Pacific. That's now Tropical Storm Hector. It's going to move on off to the west-northwest and then eventually die out over colder northeast Pacific Ocean waters. Then we have another area trying to develop along this monsoon trough here. This general area of low pressure is like a grapevine, and then you have these big ripe grapes that kind of form and fall off, if you will. And this will probably hold steady for the next couple of weeks, as the pattern seems to suggest that this region will remain very active while the Atlantic is not. Keep an eye on this. When we see the eastern Pacific die off with activity, look for the Atlantic to try to become active. It's very rare to have both basins active and going at the same time. It can happen, but if we see activity waning in the eastern Pacific, then we start to look for an increase in the Atlantic. Tomorrow I'll take a look at more of that kind of information, the Madden-Julian oscillation for the next couple of weeks, that favorable area of upward motion. We'll take a look at sea surface temperature anomalies, some interesting developments in the Nino 1 and 2 area in the eastern Pacific. I'll explain a lot of that tomorrow, and take a look at long-range computer models to kind of set the stage for the week ahead. All right? Again, I'm Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll have another video blog for you tomorrow.